bring up this comment as well. We are live. I'm streaming from a Spire Lounge in Heathrow Terminal 5. Topic today about travelling, which is apt considering I'm at the airport and you are also in Berlin, aren't you?
Yes, I am in Berlin. Yes, I'm back in my box room. I'm back in my comfort zone, sitting in front of a white wall.
Back in your bunker in Berlin.
Yes.
We've parted ways on part 1 of Russia, but we will be rejoining for part 2, where we head up to the secret place, but we're going to spend a few days in the place with apparently the most supermodels in Russia, which I've never heard of before. It's not an obvious place, is it? It doesn't even sound like a Russian name, to be honest. I think it's a wind-up.
Well, we're going to say either it's going to be amazing, or we're going to just meet a bunch of babushkas, and it's going to be very funny for everybody else and not for us. So we'll see how it goes, but I think it'll be interesting. Doing a bit of research on the place, it seems really interesting. Some cool stuff there. So
speaking to our man on the ground as well, it does sound and him showing us photos of the weekend, it actually looks pretty good. So fingers crossed, we'll be back there in Russia 12th to the 18th, and then obviously for guys that are wanting to join us, we still have a couple of spaces available for Helsinki, 18th to 24th. So it's going to be a blast. We've got 6 students. We've got myself and Troy leading it, and then we've got 2 other guys coming out as well, probably to help out. So it's going to be a really, really good time out there. If you've been double jabbed, not to get into a vaccine debate, but if you've been double jabbed, just to be clear, you can walk in from any country without any restriction into Finland.
Yeah.
So maybe an incentive just to look at getting the jab again. We're not turning this into a vaccine debate.
No politics. No politics today.
No politics. But yeah, today's going to be focused around travel, and we've kind of let me read out the question we got from a guy. Dear Tusk, I still feel the sweet breath breathing on your. Okay, this is a different question. Right, back to one. Richie Rich, Tusk and Troy act like we don't have jobs. He sounds like a black cab driver from come in here, steal our jobs, steal our birds.
These fridge freezers, they get on the internet, they get up the apples and pears with their plates of meat, and they don't reckon we don't have bloody jobs.
Tusk and Troy act like we don't have jobs, live in the UK, and can't just hop on a plane and leave at a moment's notice, just because they get paid to teach day game in inverted commas, in brackets, not a real career, just in case we were fooling anyone. And basically live a nomadic lifestyle. It's comical. Tusk always says, I don't know why people don't travel around with this stuff more. Simply because they can't. It's that simple. If you work a corporate job, it's just not easy to fuck off to Siberia when you fancy it. Interesting way he's framed it. We've touched a nerve talking about travel yet again, bizarrely. Despite the fact I've been doing this for 4 years and the content is all travel related, it seems people are quite anti the idea of travel. But what we want to do is amalgamate it towards a kind of a larger question here, which is, okay, circumstance abiding, we're not going to tell you how to live your lives. But what can you do and why should you be traveling, in our opinion, even if it is kind of using some holiday time in the UK, maybe max 20 days, let's say, and how best to kind of go about that process and why it's important to do so. Maybe that's kind of the angle we should come at it from. But just to address his point full on, Richie Rich, with your Kim Jong-un logo, which I'm assuming is not what you look like.
I think he's quite a regular. I think he's quite a regular viewer as well. I think so. Maybe just the. I get why people might sometimes be a little bit. I don't know, bristle a little bit about this, because particularly with you, less so with me, because to be honest, I've been sitting in a bunker in London for most of lockdown, so it's not really quite as much with me. But certainly with you, you are traveling pretty much the whole time. Well, really the whole time. And I can understand why people on the outside will be like, well, hang on a minute, it's all right for this bloke, or it's all right for these guys, just jetting off to the place where there's the most supermodels in the world. But, I'm stuck in this job. I've got family here, I've got commitments here, so we can't all be as fortunate. My initial point to that would be, yes, but both of us previously had corporate jobs and were living in London. So and we chose to make a change in lifestyle. So I don't know. What's your view on that?
Yeah, I think it's that need rest. Find your why, isn't it? And for me, it was the death of a couple of friends, which kind of, not in a sob story way, but just made me realise the value of time and how precious your time is and how you never get it back. So I wasn't fully happy in London. I think I've been coasting along for a long time, just doing what was expected rather than actually really taking an active reins in my life. So I made that decision to quit the corporate world and leave and get on a plane. And yeah, I mean, again, as you said, we were working in corporate jobs in the city. So, you know, I guess we have in some ways crafted ourselves a job, but I earn far more money now, far more money now doing what I do. I get far more job satisfaction in the sense that I get a lot more feedback on the fact I change people's lives. So I'd say, if anything, the job I do now is far more impactful than just being a cog in the wheel, which I was.
Well, yeah, I mean, there is that small point. I mean, he makes that, you know, snide sort of aside, saying, well, teaching day games is not a proper job. I mean, listen, building a business where you give value and other people, you know, they want that value. There's a demand there, and they're willing to give you money. That is a perfectly legitimate business model. And so I think teaching day game or teaching, you know, knitting or teaching anything else is a proper job, you know, as far as we can say what a proper job is. I mean, in some ways, I would say, I think like you've just really given paid lip service to, I think in some ways I would say actually what I'm doing now is more of a proper job than what I was doing before, when I was really just a cog in the corporate machine and I could get fired at any time and nobody really gave a damn. You know, there was no loyalty from the company to me. There was no loyalty really from me to the company. You know, and there is this wider issue that the corporate world is not safe in the way that it once was. It's not sort of like, oh, well, I'll get a corporate job because I'll be there for life and I'll get, you know, a nice pension at the end and it's all going to be great. That world doesn't exist anymore. So, and this whole thing about what is a proper job? Well, a proper job is where you deliver value and people are willing to pay you for that value. And I would say that what we're doing falls firmly in that category.
Yeah, again, it's quite again, we can't read into him too much because he might be writing it in a moment of anger or whatever. It doesn't make it about totally. But yeah, it did seem a little bit judgy. I mean, guys often ask for advice on what should I be doing as a job, not me, but guys going, oh, what should I be doing as a job? And I always say to guys, look, I respect any guy who's working any job as long as you've decided to do that and you're 100% in. What isn't acceptable, in my opinion, is working a job where you're not really enjoying it, but you're too scared to break out of the mold and really have a think about. You haven't got the self-respect enough to think about what you really want to be doing. So I think that's when I call into question the integrity of what someone's doing, not the career title. I couldn't give a monkeys, or not the job title. It's whether you're actually enjoying it. Because if you're not, you know, part of this, when we teach, the guy says, Richie Rich says, we teach day game, that's part of it. But really what we're doing is helping guys with every area, getting them to max out the fitness, the fashion, the finances, living an interesting reality. If you're doing a job that sucks balls in your mind and you're doing it 8-9 hours a day, you know, 5 days a week for a period of 10-15 years, that's going to have a big mental toll on what you're doing. You know, women are going to smell that you're not really particularly happy. They are jumping into your reality to a large degree. So I think you need to kind of look in the mirror and think, right, what's the circumstance here?
I mean,
definitely. Again, we don't want
to. Exactly. I mean, he may have just, like you said, he's just sounding off there. It's probably, you know, not necessarily meant to be like some grave personal insult or something, but it's just like we do live in this world now where things are changing and mutating the whole time, and what is considered a career, what is considered like a proper job. I mean, you know, there was a lot of criticism last year for these like Instagram influencers who all went off to Dubai during the lockdown, and people were like, "Wow, it's not a proper job, is it?" You know, like. But I mean, as I say again, whatever gives people value, and they're willing to pay. Somebody's willing to pay money for that. That's a fair exchange, right? And those people who've got just Instagram accounts and they're posting pictures in bikinis and stuff. You know, if you amass 1 million followers and then brands can monetize that and you get paid for it, well, you know, there it is. This is capitalism. This is how the world works. So
I agree. It's about demand, isn't it? It's not about morality. It's just about what's the actual demand. If people are paying
exactly
content,
and
it's a job.
And by the way, I mean, it's worth mentioning, we've both said, you know, if for some reason we had to step back from doing what we're doing at the moment, then we would do that, and we would just look to take it in a different direction, or we'd look to do something slightly different but adjacent to this. So it's teaching day game is one thing that you can do, but there are many things that you can do as a self-employed person, or even as an employed person, where you're working remotely and you have got this ability to travel around.
Yeah, he's also said, I mean, again, we're just kind of reading between the lines here, but he said, oh, it's, basically live on that, just because they get paid to teach day game, not a real career, and basically live a nomadic lifestyle. It's comical. I mean, again, we will maybe at some stage do the Tusk and Troy Comedy Roadshow, but we're not doing it for comical reasons. We're doing it because we live one life and we choose to travel because it makes us happy. I'm speaking for myself there, but I think with Troy as well. It's part of the gambit of living life for me is traveling. I really enjoy it. So one man's cup of tea is another man's croissant. But we're not trying to enforce this on anyone. It's just the life we've chosen.
Yeah,
I think that's the.
But I suppose getting aside from the his day game, his teaching, dating, social skills, a proper job, and all of that stuff. I suppose the wider issue is, Mr. Tusk, how come you get to swat off all around the world all the time when I'm sitting at my desk in Canary Wharf? Like in practicality terms, how do you do that?
You mean what should they be doing? Or?
Well, because the reason that you're able to do that is because you've constructed a job around something that you're passionate about, right? So, so I guess the next stage is to say, well, is that possible for everybody? Could everybody do this in some form or another?
Yeah, I believe so. I mean, again, we don't want to get into the nitty-gritty because guys will know their own kind of regulations with corporate work better than us. But I know a number of people who basically can work remotely. A number of US guys, there's probably about 20 I could probably list out, who were still working for corporates in America, but they're basically globally remote.
Yeah.
So they can do it from anywhere. So what they've done is I've spoken to a number of them, consulted with a number of them on which location is best for them, depending on kind of their preferences of weather, type of people they're going to be integrating with the culture, etc., etc. And a number of them are based themselves in Serbia, some in Croatia, a couple in Ukraine, a couple in Russia, a couple in Scandinavia. I mean, they're fine. They're loving it, So
yeah,
I don't see, again, if you're, I don't know, it just strikes me as, again, we're reading between the lines. We're never really going to get a real answer, right?
Well, we are because Richie Rich has just joined the chat and he's just put a comment in the chat now.
He did. My God. It's like when you get someone calling in to like a radio show. I love it.
Yeah.
Can we actually put him on? Is that possible?
If he wanted to, we could send him the link and he could come on, but it would depend if he wants to or not. I mean, obviously he could do it without he could have the camera off if he wanted to.
Do you want to come on? Just Richie Rich, open invite if you want to come on and discuss this. Hi lads, just FYI, sorry if that comment came across preachy. I was just a bit miffed that you couldn't find the guys are being lazy for not traveling. Some people have solid reasons. Yeah, I get that. Some people have commitments in one place, they can't travel. All we're trying to do is encourage people to travel because we think it's going to equate to an expansion of your horizons and a lot of opportunities on the dating front, but you don't have to. What else has he said? Also, as well as I do that the dating industry is full of frauds and shysters. Nice old school Charles Dickens English. I treat the whole thing with a high degree of skepticism. Not saying that applies to you, but still. So he's kind of cloak and dagger calling us out, is he? I'm not sure what he's
No, saying. I don't think so. I think that he just means that the industry as a whole is is known to be sort of you do get some shady characters and yeah, we're fully aware of that, and that's something we've discussed and we'll probably continue to discuss on shows. But I mean, I don't know what to say to that really, because that doesn't detract from what we're doing, which we believe is a appropriate, value exchange, where we're taking people and we're through various methods, we're giving them content or we're training them, and we're getting good results. So yeah, I mean, there may be some fraudsters around, but that doesn't really affect the validity of what we're doing.
And also, I think, again, it's not being preachy from our point of view, but just for guys to bear in mind, we put out content completely for free. It's really your decision if you want to buy into it or not. There's no pressure from us to do so. If you resonate with our content, which some people do, and then you consider us as people that can help you kind of improve this area of your life, that's when you get in touch, and that's when there's exchange of money for time and value, etc. But you've got to remember, first and foremost, we do everything for free. Again, I would liken it to, I think what we do is kind of like Steve Jobs designing the inside of the Apple keyboard, where you're never going to, no one's going to really see it. If I wasn't, I would be doing this lifestyle anyway. I'd be living this lifestyle regardless. If I wasn't putting it online, I'd probably be writing it down.
Yeah.
On a private blog. So it's really just an extension of what we're doing that people are kind of buying into, seeing through the looking glass in a way.
Indeed.
But yeah, going back to the point in question about traveling. So, okay, let's assume that you can't get on a plane and just work remote and head off and blah, blah, blah. Why should you bother traveling when you get a holiday? How best to do it?
Well, I mean, I still need to have a look at my, circumstance. I still need to make a decision about exactly how I'm going to take this, because I mean, Tusk, you are pretty much nomadic, aren't you? That would be fair to say. I mean, you are kind of on the road the whole time. I'm still not really. I mean, I've got a place in London. I've also got actually this place here in Berlin. And what it might end up being is that I could potentially work a model where I am sort of effectively based in London, but I'm going on trips, which again, I know is not possible for everybody, because if I'm not doing the corporate 9 to 5, I can sort of go whenever I want. But I mean, when I was in the corporate 9 to 5, I would just be taking holidays and I'd be going away to different places. Obviously in the UK, particularly, we're very lucky because we're very near to Europe and Russia. So it's not difficult to get on a plane. Even for a weekend, you could go to Poland, charge around, make some contacts with some new people. And then you've got the opportunity to then go back and follow up on that. So, I mean, the US, I guess, you can go to different states and things like this, but certainly in the UK, we're very lucky, given that we're near to a shed load of very, very interesting countries with a lot of cool, people there and cool women there.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I agree. I mean, but, if you were back in that kind of corporate job and you were considering, you've been listening to old Torero's podcast, which was the inspiration for me to start traveling, because he was always saying he's in a new place and it just sounded very descriptive, and I was really jealous being stuck in London. But
the dappled sunlight is shining onto the palm trees.
Little raindrops dance off my skin, all that routine. What would you be advising guys to do, or what would you be doing if you were back in that position? Would you be desperate to hop on a plane? Would you be getting in touch with, recommended places? Would you be planning absolutely to get more remote, or I mean, what would you be doing?
I think, I guess I'd be trying to plan an exodus to work out a way to be more remote in the first place, because that's one thing. But the second thing is, I'd probably just be using holiday time to be jetting off here and there and everywhere, really. I mean, I knew a guy some years ago, before I even was really fully aware of this lifestyle, and he worked in the corporate company where I worked, and actually quite a solid, sort of boring, officey type bloke. But him and his brother, they used to go off to places like Albania and Romania and all of these Eastern European countries every holiday. And he was telling me how amazing it was. And I was like, why is he going to those places? Because at the time, I wasn't clued into, some of the benefits, let's say, of those kinds of places. And now I can see, here was a guy, he's working a job, probably making quite decent income, paying the mortgage, whatever, and then jetting off whenever he had the opportunity and having an amazing time and probably meeting loads of amazing girls and everything else. So I would... I think it's perfectly feasible to do that. I mean, I know it's funny because, like, when you get Americans who come to London to work, I've often met Americans and they say, oh yeah, I just travel every weekend. Every weekend I get on a plane and I go to a different European capital city. And as an English person working in London, I don't know, I tended not to do that. That seemed to not be a thing to do. But the American who comes there as a foreigner, they're like, damn, this is awesome because I'm working in London, but also I'm really near to all these other cool places. So, and I know being a bit London UK centric there, but just think about what you can do within the limitations of whatever job it is you're doing.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. And I had a number of Aussie friends that came over on the standard 2-year visa, where they ended up doing a shitload of drugs because they're like, oh my god, it's like a third of the price. But also what they do really well, and much to my kind of chagrin and embarrassment about how it kind of made me realize how little I was taking action, was every weekend they'd be doing the same, because they knew they were on a 2-year kind of stay of execution. So every weekend they'd fly to a new European place, and it's a brilliant way to live. And they had a wild time. And I think, again, we take it for granted, don't we, when we're in a place like that? I don't know many people from London that actually do that actively, when it's kind of a no-brainer in a lot of ways, isn't it? To kind of not necessarily do it every weekend, but at least once a month. There's no real excuse.
Yeah.
You book a Thursday off, fly late Wednesday evening, Thursday, Friday, you're taking off 2 days, and then you're back Sunday. It's perfectly doable. So that might be an intermediate stage of doing it. And actually, I started doing that before I started traveling full time. I actually kind of adapted the Aussie model that my friends have been doing, because I was like, fuck, but I just pretend I've got 2 years left here. And then that's going to create that death ground, that urgency to actually get on with it. Because I think that's what's lacking, isn't it? We were talking about this in a different context the other day. But having that real urgency for stuff, you just let stuff drift by. And it's a combination of trying to figure out how to distill that feeling you get from, okay, shit, I have to get this done, or I'm not getting on that flight. My PCR test needs to be done, or I'm missing that fucking £300 flight. How do we distill that urgency into this life that we live in a non-stressful way?
Yeah. Well, I remember it really striking me, because this girl, whoever it was a girl or a guy or whatever, somebody that I've met socially, and they were saying, I just go to new places every weekend. And it really struck me. I was thinking, well, why the hell don't I do that? And I just think it's sort of like, I don't know what it is really. I think it's you're in your comfort zone as a British person in your own home city. You're sort of like, oh yeah, weekends I just chill out. I go to the pub. I do whatever. And it's a bit like, but you don't have to do that. You could Friday evening. You could go to the airport. You could get on a flight. You could go somewhere totally different. And what you can do then is you can go around and effectively, collect contact details. You could go to a place for a fairly short period of time, go around, collect contact details, and then decide if you want to follow up. So say you're in Warsaw and you collect like 10 phone numbers or something like that, and then you're messaging those women and you're seeing what the feedback is. And if some of them are looking good, then you think, okay, right, I'll go back. Maybe I'll go back for a longer weekend, or I'll go back for a week or something like that,
So it's a very good strategy. I think it's akin to, the touristy stuff in London. Most people I meet who are foreign know London far better than me in terms of like cool restaurants they've been to, tourist attractions, because you have this inherent laziness, don't you? You just assume, oh, one day I'll get it done. You take it for granted and you don't do it. So maybe that's a good strategy to recommend to guys. Richie, if you do watch this in the catch up, I know you're doing corporate stuff, but maybe that's a feasible way. Just splice into maybe 1 or 2 weekends every month where you just head off to like a distant land. It may be in Europe. I mean, it doesn't have to be South America, right, for the weekend. And if you need advice on that, obviously get in touch with myself and Troy, because between us, we've traveled very, very extensively now.
And also, you can even do. Would you recommend the old Tinder taste test before you go, to see what what the quality's like and what kind of reception you're getting from the swipes?
Although the only danger with that is Tinder, obviously being a business. I did it. My mate said, "God, then let's see as a joke. Put my hometown in when we were in Brazil. We put in Scunthorpe, and it was absolute worldies." So I don't know how accurate it really is, because I think they just fill it up with photos to make it look good. We did it with Hull as well, and I'm now thinking I should move to Hull, which, as we know, in reality is not the epicenter of the budding supermodel industry. So. I don't know, but I used to recommend doing that. I still think it's worth a go, because you can see the receptiveness of kind of leads you are matching with, and even get some information from people on the ground, just about kind of what it's like then and there, especially with COVID restrictions and things, where things are a bit unknown, things are in flux. So I mean, I think that's a great idea. I mean, I think even if I go back to London for a stint and I'm actually kind of positioned in London, that's something I'll look to do more of, because I've kind of almost remembered now that is a possibility. Just because I'm living in London for 3-4 months, or you're in Berlin, doesn't mean you can't jet off to another city within Germany.
No.
Stroke another Benelux country, or even further afield.
Well, I mean, like again, we're being very sort of like specific to those. There's probably people watching who don't live in Berlin or London, but wherever you are, you got to look at what your travel connections are like, and they're probably, I'm sure there are options for you, but both London and Berlin are very well placed for getting around the rest of Europe. Like, for example, here I can get on a train. I can be in Prague in 4 hours, and then I can be in. You can get to Warsaw in about 7 hours, I think, on the train. Get to Vienna quite quickly. Yeah. So once. So and London, obviously, you've got the big airports. You can get anywhere in the world really from London. So So yeah, it's thinking a bit bigger than your hometown, I suppose. Now, of course, there might be somebody on here going, yeah, well, I live in Wigan, so what about that, boys?
Get down to London. I know a number of guys who live in kind of the sticks, within the UK, and I say, well, could you get down to London once a month? Book an Airbnb or book a hotel. There are hotels in central London, so 1 or 2 for £40 a night. Is it feasible? They're like, yeah, and I'm like, do you want to do it? And they're like, okay, yeah, I'll do it. And then I make them book the ticket then and there. They do it, and they're like, oh, that was amazing, because obviously they come down to London. I'll put them in touch with Wings. You have that urgency when you're actually stopping people. You've got the logistics, so you can really smash it that weekend. You're there and go hell for leather. And it's a good way of kind of topping up your activity if you are in a smaller place and maybe you haven't got kind of the volume that you need. Although I do think that's another way guys kind of pretend to not put in the right amount of action, because they just think, oh, it's too small here, everyone knows each other. They're kind of missing the point, which is you can still be very sociable with everyone, even if you're not kind of hitting on it per se, if that makes sense. This is a great comment from Old Milk Place. Every Russia stream I've watched of you guys, you've worn the same t-shirts. I use sweatpants.
Yeah, it's a deliberate strategy, because women pick up on pheromones. So we chose to wear the same t-shirts for an entire 3-week period to maximize our opportunities in Russia, and it worked really well.
We've had a couple of questions about Albania and Greece here. I am actually off to Greece. I'm off to Crete for 10 days. I have been to Greece before. It's not the easiest place for day game, in my opinion, as a foreigner. You don't get like a reception we had in Russia, or when we go to the US or other places where they're very kind of pro-positive British. It's just they're just not that fast. Like, it wasn't really
in Greece.
Yeah. And then Albania's been on both our lists for a while, hasn't it? I'd love to go.
I really want to go to Albania. So maybe hopefully at some point that'll be able to tick that one off. Yeah, do a little bit of the old live filming from there, maybe.
That'd be great. I can't resonate with 2 6-foot white men with full heads of hair. Tusk, are you more of a goatee or a beer guy? There's some very strange questions going on today.
In the women that he dates,
I don't know. What else we got here? What's your traveling schedule for this year? Well, myself and Troy are going to rejoin forces in Russia, 12th to the 18th of August, and then August 18th to 24th, we will be Helsinki. And you're going to be running a boot camp as a collective.
In Berlin.
We're going to be running a boot camp in Berlin, 9th to the 12th of September.
Yes.
So if any guys are interested in any of those, get in touch. Email myself or Troy, and we will put you in touch. This is interesting. I followed Nomad Capitalist and said Eastern Europe is a great place for property and feminine women. I actually tried to get in touch with him. He didn't reply, but I think his content's pretty good. So kind of open invitation if you ever watch this, Mr. Capitalist. You want to come on for a chat, collaboration, let us know. Yeah.
Well, it is a great place for both of those things, though, because you can still pick up properties relatively inexpensively in parts of Eastern Europe. I mean, obviously do your research and all of that, but yeah, I'd agree on those points.
Tusk treats day game like an army general. I love it. What does that?
That's probably true. That's probably true, actually. All right, get out there and do your approaches.
Give me 50. It's not quite Goggins, though, is it? Doing 1,000 squats on a day. Anything else to kind of touch on with the traveling stuff that we need to be programmed about? What are some other frequently asked questions that we can mingle in to do with traveling? How much does it cost? We get that a lot, don't we? What locations to go to? We get that a lot. Again, with specific locations, what I really recommend you do is just get in touch with us, and we can both like jump on a call with you and kind of talk you through different locations, just in terms of the culture, the English levels, the receptiveness of people there. We've travelled extensively, and again, reading online an experience about a place is not necessarily akin to actually going there. So we can try and paint the picture as objectively as possible, depending on your individual circumstances. So get in touch if you want advice on that. Just send us an email, and we can help you out. But are there any other kind of prevalent travel things that you get asked a lot, Troy?
People often ask about whether to stay in hotels and Airbnbs. But your strategy is good. The strategy we were using on the trip is really good, which is you I mean, for the first thing to say is that hotels seem to work very well for short stays. If you're somewhere for longer, then maybe an Airbnb. But the other thing is logistics is key. So look for the bar area, look for the nightlife area, and try to position yourself as near to that as you possibly can, if possible on the same street, which we did in St. Petersburg.
Yeah, I think check into an area, check into a place for 1 or 2 days, maybe 1 day even. Just make sure you like it, and then kind of you have a walk around, you see where all the main area, the activity takes place, and then you make a decision: do we extend it or do we move? It's not the cheapest, is it? I mean, I totaled up roughly our accommodation costs from when I got to Russia, and it came in about 1,200, which it seems like, I guess, a lot on the face of it. But then when you times that by 12, if you were traveling full time and living in pretty decent places and doing it very non-economically, we're not assuming you booked an Airbnb for 3 months, that would come in about 12K a year, which when you put it in terms of per year, it doesn't actually seem that much, does it? Really?
Well, it's not too far. It's not. I mean, it's equivalent to rent in London. I mean, you could pay a lot more than that on rent in London. So
you could pay a lot more, and we're staying in nicer places comparatively, aren't we? A full-stay hotel.
Yeah. Most
of the time, it's going to be nicer than your flat in London if you've rented or bought one. There are exceptions to that rule. So, I mean, again, we can go into, if the demand's there, we can go into, I guess, specific, just a full-on every tip we recommend for traveling. But again, it's probably just better to get in touch with us, because we can streamline that process and just send you a quick WhatsApp, with whatever specifics you have on that stuff. Locations as well. Get in touch with us for that. That's the obvious thing to do. Just to kind of recap how much we spend. I mean, we were spending quite a bit, weren't we? We were spending probably 35 quid a day on food. So times that by 30, whatever that comes to. That was our food bill per person. What is it, £900 or something? £1,000?
What, for over the whole trip?
Yeah, if we spent 30 a day, no, less than 1,000. 30 a day times 30. What's that? And that's
God.
600.
About 900. 900.
Is it 900? How can that be the same price as what we spent on accommodation?
Well, it's not. I think we spent more on accommodation. I think we spent more like 1,500 on accommodation.
Right. Okay.
I could be wrong though. I could be. I mean, I need to look at it again. I just started.
And then I spent a bit on booze as well, and then that was. That's pretty much it in terms of kind of expenditure. We had some random things like massages, and gyms and things like that.
Yeah, you've obviously got the travel itself. You've got like the train tickets and things like this, but
the flights as well, the internal flights. I mean, we're looking at probably around 100 per flight with baggage, which again, I don't think it's much bad. We're not doing shit like flying business. I mean, it's just pointless for short-term flights. But again, with flying, if you plan it in far enough in advance, then it's actually pretty cheap. We tend to book last minute, so it's more expensive, but you don't need to do that, do you?
No, exactly. I mean, there are certainly cheap travel hacks and all the rest of it, and we could get into that on another stream. But I suppose the overarching point is that it's not as expensive as people think. I mean, and that trip we did it in a fairly, not baller way, but we did it in a fairly comfortable way. You could certainly do it a lot more cheaply than we did.
You could do it. You could spend a third really of what we spent and still have a pretty good trip where you're not staying in dodgy hostels with 16 men and some strange sounds at night. I mean, it's definitely doable, but we were just kind of like, well, yeah, we enjoy good hotels. we enjoy swanning down in our ball gowns, as someone plays a piano in the corner, someone playing a violin, and some over the top, under some over the top chandelier, some absolute nonsense. So yeah, we don't splurge on it, but we also don't go cheap on it. So, but again, within your means, and I think the key point that I've always made with this, that I kind of did accidentally, was kind of trying to just live the lifestyle I wanted to, and then your money catches up because you just realise you have to earn a certain amount to do that. So it forces you to earn more. Whereas the scarcity mindset of kind of going, oh, okay, I'm going to exist on a tin of baked beans and stay in a room, inevitably, because you're kind of almost going to shrink it, you're going to have less motivation to earn more money. So that's just a personal thing, I think. You don't have to go into CD details, but how quickly people go home from a home hotel from day game or traveling. I mean, you did it very quickly on a date that I was actually watching.
Yes.
Kind of because I was in the same venue, and it was about half an hour. But it's not necessarily game on in the house. You have to set them sitting down. We've got our friend in common, Mr. K, Kofi. I mean, his date model is just walking back to his hotel. He doesn't do the date. And then once, he's in his house, it can be game on within a minute. It could maybe take him an hour, 2 hours. But the key is he's basically skipping out to go for a drink part because he doesn't drink. So he doesn't want to sit in the bar. So he's just like, okay, I'm walking back to his house, some sort of plausible liabilities go in. And then it's like kind of just make it happen from there, which in a way is quite a sensible way of doing it because you're just showing exactly what it's about. And if she doesn't want to buy into that process, then she just leaves. And it's okay because she doesn't hold it against you for trying it on. So I think it's something maybe guys could experiment with a bit more, doing Mr. K's date model. He's been doing that for years. So it's definitely feasible. You don't have to do it because I know guys quite like the romance of going for a couple of drinks. Maybe that's just more your bag, but that is a possibility so far.
We were sort of getting closer to that, weren't we, on the trip, but largely because of the practical logistics. Because if you're only staying somewhere for 2 nights and it's your last night, then really what are you going to do?
Yeah, we had that natural urgency of time, didn't we, against us? So that is your biggest enemy with all this stuff, and with every trip, it always happens, doesn't it? Where all the kind of leads come together at the last minute, and it's almost like the last day you've almost decided, right, I'm going to have an early one, and then suddenly three potentials come through, and you're like, oh, for God's sake. The nature of this feast is always like that, and then you kind of back the right horse and stuff.
And we could talk about that. We could talk about that again on a different stream because the sort of which horse do you back kind of side of things, almost like the admin side of it, is quite interesting because you can make tactical errors with that stuff. I've certainly done that where you put your money on a prospect and then that prospect doesn't come through and then you've wasted another prospect.
Yeah, and the great irony is it's a bit like trying to guess someone's nationality when you first stop them. We always get it wrong. You almost always back the wrong horse, don't you, in a lot of ways, because the girl who's very open and super sexual, ironically, is often the girl who's not actually wanting to do anything, and it's kind of the one you didn't suspect, kind of sweet, innocent girl that might be up for something. So it's our inability to read a room often. Just men as a whole, it's quite tough to do it, and we always tend to make assumptions which you think are clear as day. 100% this is the right thing, and it's often not.
Super Elite makes an interesting comment. I highly recommend watching walking tour travel videos on YouTube. Almost every city has them. 4K walking tour Moscow, you can see girls and it helps you get inspired. So from our point of view, this is quite interesting because I have heard about this, and apparently these videos are getting massive views. And it's basically just a bloke walking around with a camera showing the city. And in a funny way, what we were doing with the live streams was similar to that in a sense. We were walking around showing the city, but also having a bit of banter and also doing a few approaches at the same time. So I think that kind of further validates the model that we've started to do, which is these live walking around, dating live stream things. Because even if we're not doing an approach, you still get to see the viewers still get to see the city. They get to see a bit of the vibe. So it's sort of part travel, part dating advice, if you like.
Yeah, and I think that's the direction we're going to head in, isn't it? Because we really like the exploring part and seeing the cultural element as well. So when we can combine that in with just what we're doing, which is basically being uber sociable, and then as a result of that, opportunities arise, that's kind of a cool way to kind of take this stuff. And I think we're both keen to do it because it's not for us. When we go to a new place, it is about exploring. It is about sampling the kind of local food and going out to some cool places and exploring the city, seeing the history, seeing the art, all that sort of stuff. For me, that kind of completes the trip. And if you're not doing that, it's kind of like, well, what did you really do?
I mean, the old thing of like, we stayed in a hostel and we went out doing day game for 14 hours a day, and it's a bit seedy and it's a bit miserable, really. I mean, you want to be doing it more as a cultural thing, I think.
I think so, and just blend it in as an overarching thing. Again, if you're starting this off and you feel you need to go hardcore into it, then maybe that's an acceptable way of doing it to begin. But for me, the most fun has been when you combine both, because you actually explore the place and you see the city and you have these amazing experiences and memories.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a bit of both. Give me 1 second, Mr. Francis. I'm just going to go and check my flight. Maybe answer Sean's question while I'm just head off.
Yeah. So Sean says, do you find it hard to bag absolute worldies for short-term, no-strings sex when they know you are traveling and won't be hanging around? Most high-quality women want some commitment before sex. No. Not necessarily, no. I mean, of course, it depends what you mean by a high-quality woman. I mean, but in the end, all women are women. You know, they all enjoy sex. They all enjoy meeting new guys. They all enjoy hooking up. It kind of just depends, and there is an element of being in the right place at the right time with this stuff. You know, if you're talking about attractive women, like beautiful women, then it's kind of a crapshoot, really. I mean, you are going to find some that you are going to, you know, be able to get intimate with very quickly in a casual way, and that's going to be absolutely fine. Others are going to be more resistant to that, but this is the whole point. I mean, the whole point of the model that we're doing really is just going out, being as social with everybody as possible, and sort of seeing what comes from that. You know, if you're talking about quality women in the sense of, oh, she's really traditional and she's got certain values and this and that, then I suppose, yeah, you know, there's a possibility that many of those girls are going to be a bit more, you know, they're going to need a little bit more investment before they get intimate with somebody. But it's a little bit of a misconception to think that, I mean, in the end, women are women, right? You know, sometimes they want a fast, exciting adventure. You know, for other purposes in their life, they want, you know, something a bit slower, a bit longer term, because they're looking for commitment. So it's just a question of going out there, flipping over the stones, as we say, and seeing what comes up. And you'd be surprised at the results that you can get. What else have we got here? Sharon says, what is your, I can't bring these up. Troy, what is your opinion on pulling a threesome with threes if you can't get a six? Because 2 times 3 equals 6. I think it's a good strategy. I just finished off this Sean Evans one. I was just saying that it's a bit of a misconception to assume that, you know, a woman isn't going to be down for casual sex just because, you know, she's of a certain level of beauty or anything like that. You know, you've got to just flip over the stones. Sometimes it's a question of being in the right place at the right time, but you'd be surprised what you can get.
Agreed. Completely agreed.
What was the volume like in Moscow versus St. Petersburg? Did you find high frequency approach easy? I would say the volume. I mean, Moscow is 12 million people. St. Petersburg is about 5 or 6 million. So, you know, the volume in Moscow is bigger. No doubt about it. And quality in Moscow is very, very high as well. But, and we've actually been having this internal debate because it's like, which do we prefer? And it's kind of a tricky one. I like both of them for different reasons. St. Petersburg, it's still a very big city, and you've still got a lot of very, very beautiful women there. So both of them are great. St. Petersburg, it probably comes more down to personal taste in the end. I mean, St. Petersburg is good because it's a little bit grimy. It's got a good nightlife scene. It's kind of fun. Moscow is a little bit more pretentious. It's a little bit more high class, which is good or bad, depending on what your tastes are. But I think ultimately, if someone put a gun to my head, I think ultimately Moscow probably wins because you've just got huge quantity and you've got extreme beauty concentrated in the same place.
Yeah, I think they're both. I think you may completely agree with both viewpoints on it. I think maybe there's an argument for us to end up in St. Petersburg when we go back, just because the flight to Helsinki is only 55 minutes.
Yeah.
So geographically, it kind of makes sense. But I guess it also depends on the leads, doesn't it? Because we're going to tax. We've both got leads to tax. It's kind of like, well, which horses do you get to back? But there was something quite cool about St. Petersburg, a bit grim, a bit grimy. And logistically, it was amazing, wasn't it, being on Rubenstein as well?
Yeah, that's interesting. Saboshi says, I moved to Poland from USA about 3 months ago. After landing a remote job, there are plenty of, at the moment, I'm not sure what that means, but best decision I made. I can imagine it would be, because obviously, you know, and this is the thing, you know, this space is full of guys complaining about the dating marketplace, but they tend to be in America or the UK or Canada. and they're saying, oh, you know, everything's going to hell in a handcart. Dating is terrible. It's over. Blah blah blah. But when you move to a different country, when you move someone to somewhere like Poland, and you know, other parts of the former Soviet Union or Latin America or whatever, you see, hang on a minute, things are actually really different here. And that, I think, is probably a message that we need to bang the drum for more.
I agree. My flight is boarding, so should I leave you on? Do you want to stay on for a bit? I mean, the 65 guys.
No, because unfortunately, I need to go as well because I've got to sort myself out because I've got to go to a meeting in a bit. So we'll probably have to call it now. But
we've got final question though from Jaren. Yes, it's great. I've taken Indian Pakistani guys there for a few years. They always do well. It's a brilliant place to learn this stuff. Very promiscuous culture as well.
James says Helsinki or Stockholm for his first day game adventure out of the UK.
Personally, for me, I would say Helsinki. I think it's just more fun. People are more friendly, more quirky. You can get the ferry over to Tallinn as well, just for a bit of banter. Just a really fun place. More friendly. I think overall more friendly than Swedes as well. So highly recommend it. If you've got questions on Helsinki, guys, send us an email. We still have a couple of spaces. You can come and join us 18th to 24th of August if you want, and you can come for any number of days. If you even want to drop by for one day, we do a per day rate. You can come for multiple days, but just get in touch because we are sorting that out as we speak. I guess we'll go again tomorrow. Keep up these live.
Indeed.
We'll
Indeed.
think about an appropriate question.
Absolutely. Good stuff.
Nice one. Okay, guys. Been a pleasure. I've got to run and get on a flight. Troy, enjoy your day, and we will see you again soon.
Speak soon. Bye-bye.
Pleasure. Bye.